Cageside with John Morgan.
And we are back post UFC pay-per-view edition of Cageside with John Morgan. I'm your host, Eric McMahon, the GOAT. Showed everybody why he's the GOAT. Oliveira, that dude's good. He showed it. Chandler is a dog. We already knew that. Proved it once again on Saturday night. Mauricio Ruffy, which we were really, really high on, still looked great. Faded a little late, but, you know, he's making big call-outs here in the future, so we're anxious to see that. I ref Bareknuckle Gamebred MMA this past weekend. John had a very busy weekend as well. Little bit of controversy on both sides. We're going to get into it. But without further ado, let's bring in the man. His name is on the marquee. Follow him on X, John Morgan _MMA. What up, man?
It's so funny, man, because it was one of the craziest busy weekends. I mean, we didn't even talk about Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson off the intro there, which I know we're focused more on mixed martial arts. But if you're a fight fan who wasn't tuned into that, we kind of all knew what was going to happen. But yeah, the college wrestling that I was a part of was CFFC Match Day. You in the main event of Bareknuckle Gamebred Bareknuckle MMA having to make a very, very, I won't say tough call. It seemed like a pretty easy call to make, actually, but just tough when you consider the repercussions. But then it all leads up to Madison Square Garden, and boy, that Jon Jones guy, he's pretty good. Maybe Dana's got something overall that this guy is the pound for pound number one right now. It was a fun event, missing a few exclamation points along the way at UFC 309, but still some great performances and a huge event.
I mean, maybe, but there was so much like fanfare around, like with 45 and 47 in the house, his whole cabinet there, just Madison Square Garden. Like, you almost don't need anything more than the garden itself. It's an event in itself. But with all that being said, let's just dive into the elephant in the room. Jake Paul, Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah.
Listen. Anybody who knows this game has been telling you. I don't know how many text message I got from fringe people being like, what do you think about this? Should I put money on Tyson? Tyson's going to knock him out, right? And I'm just like, listen, you stupid sons of bitches. Like, how are we having this conversation in 2024? Mike Tyson was relevant in the early 90s. It's 2024.
Listen, it was shocking to me leading into it. I mean, number one, I think you and I both saw, right? Because, you know, you and I can both probably gauge how interested people are in an event by the fact that they come talk to us about stuff, right? Because they know we're fight people, but they never really talk about fights on a weekly basis. So when those people crawl out of the woodwork to talk to you about some fights, you know that it's captured the public attention. And they definitely captured the public attention, man. Again, credit to Jake Paul and his team. They have done such a great job of just picking the right opponents along the way to help guide this career. And this was one that got interest. And of course, like, listen, I was interested. All of our crew at CFFC, we were actually on the road. We were all dialed in watching, but we all knew as fight people exactly what was. I mean, that literally played out spot for spot, second for second, moment for moment, exactly how you knew it would play out. So there was no surprises. Did I still enjoy the spectacle? Did it, of course, I tuned in to watch it, but it was so funny. The next morning afterwards, I was in the hotel lobby waiting to get picked up to go to our next venue, and I actually just heard a random woman on the phone talking to somebody. She's like, no, I heard Mike Tyson wasn't allowed to knock him out, so that's what happened. And I just literally, I had to put my face in my hands and bite my tongue and not say anything. It's just like, no. That's what happens when you're 58 years old. Even if you're a savage like Iron Mike Tyson, Father Time is undefeated. At 58 years old, you're not going to keep up with a young man like that. And, maybe power's there in the first minute, but after that, you're not going to be able to. So, it played out exactly like expected. You didn't have to pay for a pay-per-view, I guess. So it's not like I felt robbed afterwards, like, oh, man, they got my money. It just was on Netflix.
5 hours, if anybody tuned in.
Did get robbed in 5 hours. Hey, the Serrano-Taylor fight, though, man, that made it worth it right there. Those two women went at it. That was a phenomenal co-main event. They didn't necessarily love the judging in it, but that's another discussion. We're more of a mixed martial arts podcast than boxing. I'll let the experts weigh in on that.
To the point of where you were saying you overheard this conversation and you took everything you had not to jump in, I had to jump in on a conversation that I overheard.
Of course you did.
So it's Thursday, midday. And I'm at a local gas station getting a cup of coffee. I got small kids. I don't sleep much, right? And I'm tremendously busy.
Right.
So I'm filling up my cup of coffee, and this is like, I want to paint you this picture. It's like it was a gas station, but it might as well have been a barbershop. You know, you had all the old heads sitting around talking. Yep. You had the young heads. You know, the old heads are holding court. The young heads are kind of like talking to them, trying to express their views. And they're talking about the Tyson Paul fight coming up. And everybody, Tyson's going to kill him. Tyson's going to kill him. This, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. And I just go, from filling up my coffee in the room, and I go, hey, guys. I go, if you really think Tyson's going to kill him, I got oceanfront property here in Tennessee I want to sell you. Dude, that shit set off a firestorm. And they were like, what, man? What are you talking about? And literally I go, you realize he's almost 60, right? You realize that even at the tail end of his fighting career, he wasn't that effective. Like,
right.
Revisionist history changes stuff. Like, and you can't do it. I said, he was in a walker a year ago. A year ago, he was using a walker. So let's put everything into perspective. I said, listen, if you're asking my opinion, Jake Paul's going to carry him. He's not going to tarnish his legacy, and they're all going to get paid, and we're going to buy in. It's the dirty side of boxing. Happens all the time. In my opinion, that's what Floyd Mayweather Jr. did too with Conor McGregor. He carried him until he wanted to put a stamp on him. And that's just the way this game goes.
Well, it was interesting too, because Jake Paul was asked about that at the post-fight press conference. Like, hey, did you kind of ease up a little bit? And he basically admitted, like, yeah, there was no need to really hurt him in there, which was weird to me to hear, because, like, on the one hand, like, honestly, that's the compassionate thing to do, right? You realize, hey, this dude is not presenting any problems to me whatsoever. Like, he's not going to knock me out. I'm safe. I don't need to hurt him either. I can tell that he's not really going to keep up with me. So I respect the compassion side of it. But, and I know it sounds a little savage, but as fight fans, that's not what we sign up for, right? We agree that you two guys are going in there trying to win this thing at 100%, and you kind of just admitted you didn't. Now, do I think that's going to impact his long-term marketability? I don't. I mean, I think when you tune in for a Jake Paul fight, you're tuning in for a bit of spectacle and a bit of sideshow and a bit of all the stuff that comes along with it. I don't know what the next move is. I know the team will figure out a next move for him. I mean, again, they've done a masterful job of guiding his career to get him to this point. I don't think he wants any part of Canelo. God bless him. I know he says he does, and in his heart, he may believe it. And I respect him for even laying that challenge out for himself. I don't think that goes very well for him. But listen, I tuned in. I know hundreds of millions of others tuned in as well.
I read a report. Netflix had 60 million households.
That's
60
amazing,
million
man.
households. So let's just, on a low end estimate, say we're going to average 3 people.
Yep.
Watching it per
180
million people. That's low end. People had parties.
Yeah.
That's not counting bars and restaurants and like all this stuff.
Yeah, but this was not one of those ones that you were like, hey man, I'm hardcore. I gotta watch this one by myself because I want to hear the commentary. I don't want anybody ruining my viewing experience. You know what I mean? This was not that. This is, bro, let's come over and watch this chaos. Let's watch this insanity together.
Unbelievable. I wanted to ask you, I don't know. I'm pretty well versed in athletic commissions at this point.
Right.
And rules and regulations.
Yep.
I don't understand this one, right? So it was regulated by the state of Texas.
Right.
And they're marketing it as a regulated pro boxing match, or at least they were announcing it. I find that hard to believe to a degree because, as you know as well as I do. Now, do I think Texas regulated the event? Yes, gate tax wise, this, that, and the other wise. But you know well just as well as I do, and we may be informing people that rules are rules that are contested under guidelines of a sport, right? So in mixed martial arts, you have to wear this ounce padding gloves. You can't have knee braces. You can't have this. You can't have that. There's so many of them that you have to learn. Boxing on the other hand, it's the same way. Right? A pro boxing match is contested with 3-minute rounds. A pro boxing match is contested with 10-ounce gloves.
Right.
This fight was contested with 2-minute rounds and 14-ounce gloves.
I know.
I don't know how that was a real regulated pro fight. And I don't think it was. That's just me from afar looking at it. And I think when they're saying this event is regulated by the Tennessee Department of whatever it was, weights and measures or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Regulatory affairs. I think that's what it is in Texas. They were doing it more from like a gate tax perspective and not necessarily the fight. Do you have any insight on that?
You know what's funny is I don't, and I hadn't actually thought about that, but it's interesting. I like what you're talking about there because obviously I was super busy this past week, and boxing is not my normal beat, but it's interesting too because I did see reports from people that were on hand as well that the commission would not release the official weights of the official weigh-ins that were held in the morning behind closed doors, which again kind of leads you to believe like, well, why wouldn't they release the weigh-in weights? Like that doesn't make sense unless
government agency they do.
Exactly. So it kind of I hadn't even considered it, and I would be, I think it's important to say we're speculating, but it's informed speculation. But yeah, what you said, I kind of had thought. Now, I will say it is important to point out this. You talk about the framework and the regulations, the guidelines. Most commissions will let you pull things back. Like, for instance, the PFL in their tournaments not allowing elbows, right? So it's like the commissions will normally say, look, here's the rules. If you're saying you want to take some things away, like if you were to host a mixed martial arts contest and you would say, hey, listen, we want our rounds to only be 4 minutes because we think that'll speed things along a little bit. The commission, you'd have to ask them about it, but they would probably approve that. Now, if you went to them and said, we'd actually like our rounds to be 6 minutes, we want to do more, they're going to say, no, you can't do that. So the fact that they went to, higher padded gloves, to shorter rounds, those would all be things that I would think would be, possibly ensuring safety, especially when you consider Mike Tyson's age and all that. So it's possible that all that was approved and et cetera, et cetera. But, when you add in the fact that like they refused to release the official weights and they said that, you're going to have to go up to the organization to get that information or it will be released on fight night, kind of makes the speculation a little bit more interesting.
I just found it, odd, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Odd. I found it odd. But
yeah.
All right, enough of that. We talked about it. It
was the biggest. I mean, look, as big as UFC was and as massive as Jon Jones is as the GOAT, let's be honest, as far as the casual fan goes, it was the biggest conversation of the weekend.
Yeah, 100%.
Other than your main event, of course. That was a big conversation too.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. But let's get into it. UFC 309 from the Garden. Unfortunately, neither one of us had a chance to be there.
I know.
Nope. 45 and 47 was there. Elon Musk was there. Tulsi Gabbard, Kid Rock. The stars were out, and the GOAT remained the GOAT.
Dude is so good, man. First of all, let me just say, I know that people have different political leanings and all that, but just take for a second, regardless of which side of the fence you stand on, how amazing is it that you have those political figures in the building at a UFC event? You and I remember a time when the government was trying to ban this sport and put it away. You know what I mean?
Well,
so now,
when I was in high school, sent me a letter calling me basically an idiot when I wrote him as a school project to try and get MMA regulated in Arizona. He called me an idiot.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, so the change that we've seen. So I just want to say that, regardless of what you're saying, I still think it's amazing when you see moments like that. So, but as far as Jon Jones, man, the dude is just so good. I mean, not like it's any breaking news or that it changed the opinion of either you or I going into this fight. I mean, we had all the respect in the world for Jon Jones and fully expected him to do what he did. But it's still amazing to watch, man. That's, just the calmness, the efficiency, the creativity that he operates with on a daily basis in every fight is just, it's unbelievable. It's off the charts. And this was just, I mean, was never in trouble against a dangerous, powerful, in shape, motivated Stipe Miocic that looked like he was every bit as dangerous as he's ever been, but just could get nothing going against Jon. That early little sweep takedown was just gorgeous, and you do not want to be under Jon Jones, man. The ground and pound that he has is just scary, but and then ultimately the spinning back kick, a thing of beauty as well. I mean, the guy does unbelievable stuff. Preparing with Gordon Ryan, preparing with Gable Stevenson, working hours on his taekwondo on the exact kick that he used. I mean, the dude is just an absolute perfectionist of his craft. And again, I still think, regardless of what you think in the pound for pound currently, he is the greatest of all time. I have absolutely just no problem saying that whatsoever. He's the GOAT.
Yeah, I mean, anybody, listen, I know Rogan says, well, it's hard to measure GOAT because, you got to get them in their prime and their goats at different things. But I think by and large, Jon Jones to everybody is the GOAT. Yep. Now, I want to take us back 1 week ago, and I'm going to start by saying, one, me and you are pretty much awesome at breaking down fights.
We've seen some fights.
If you know what you're looking for, you can, outside of people getting lucky, you could predict with, to a relative degree of certainty. But the one thing I was wrong about is I said, I think this is going to be a lot more competitive than people are making it out to be. And I was wrong there, right? Because Jon Jones just, for whatever, he's that good that he didn't even allow. Sometimes you let Jon Jones will get into a rhythm where, he a little bit of inactivity to a degree, and then he did some things. And I thought that was going to be the way it was going to be, but eventually he would run away with it in every round. I didn't see him right out the gates just starting to brutalize Stipe. I didn't see that, right? Because I thought when Stipe has Jon Jones is going to be at the most cautious in that first round. And that was kind of why I thought that. But we also said Jon Jones is going to be masterful in this. Jon Jones is going to keep them guessing. And the spots for finishes are that. You asked me specifically, how do you think Jon Jones gets this done? And I said, by keeping him guessing. He is so masterful at range and distance, and he's going to keep them guessing. He's going to go low. He's going to go high. He's going to this, that, and the other. And I said, or I think he's gonna take them down. And Jon Jones doesn't typically double leg people. He's gonna. I remember saying this. He's gonna take him down, and he's gonna land in a very advantageous position for him and not Stipe. And that's exactly what happened in round number one. And credit to Stipe for even surviving round number one.
Yeah, I'm right with you on everything because I thought the same thing. I shared the same opinion with you that I thought this was going to be a lot more competitive matchup. Maybe I would say that, perhaps surprised Stipe wasn't a bit more aggressive in the opening round because I did think that probably was his best opportunity. But I just think it goes to show exactly what you were illustrating there, that when somebody has you guessing, it makes it tough to pull the trigger. It's still a mixed martial arts contest with somebody wearing small gloves that can hurt you, that has everything, and you have to be aware of their weapons. It's not, you can't just close your eyes and start swinging. And so, I think all the guessing that he had to do and everything that Jon was doing in terms of working the different levels, of giving him different things, the traps that he sets, the fakes that he throws, like everything that he does made that very, very impossible. And yeah, I thought Jon might have gotten this thing done earlier. As I said, that takedown was a thing of beauty, man, absolute gorgeousness. And then once he's on top of you pounding away, man, that is not a position you want to be in. It was just a masterful performance.
He can turn those elbows over with is next level.
It's next level. It's the nastiest we've ever seen in the game. And, I love the fact that he no longer has to think about it. Now, we know he doesn't have a ton of fights left in him, regardless of how that all plays out. But the fact that for the rest of his career, the 12-6 elbows are illegal and he never has to worry about how he throws those things at all just makes him even more savage and even more dangerous. That dude is nasty on top, man. And this, again, it's just I did not expect him to make it look that easy. And I think the problem is, I think a lot of people are going to walk out of it and be like, that was too easy. Stipe didn't provide anything. And no, man, that's going to show how dominant Jon is. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just all the stuff outside of the cage. And obviously the personality rubs some people the wrong way. But I feel like people try to discredit Jon every single chance they get instead of sitting back and just being like, damn, this dude is good. Like how much of an honor is it that we get to watch this dude? Because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm not saying somebody might not come up and erase some of his records. It'll be hard because he's putting those benchmarks way out there. You know what I mean? He's putting those records way out there. But I'm not saying they won't be beaten, but that won't take away from the greatness. Like, we'll still be talking about Jon Jones 10, 15, 20, 25, and in perpetuity. This dude is part of history. It's amazing what he's done.
And we can go through and we can kind of break down round by round, but it's pointless, right?
It is.
The one thing I do want to say is, like, I remember we were talking about, like, what's going to happen when Stipe comes in is Jon is going to throw something right away and stick him in his tracks, in which he did. But a lot of times he just, I don't know if you caught this, he just put his hand on his forehead.
Yep. Just some big brother stuff. Just some big brother stuff.
Stop. Boom.
So,
Yeah, you stop right there. And I was like, he's so damn good.
Again, it's just, to me, it's just watching him fight is, again, the speed at which things happen for him. It just unfolds like in slow motion. Like that dude just sees everything, man. He gets everything. He just, there's no chaos in there for him. You know what I mean? Everything is measured. It's just incredible to watch.
It is. Before we get to what's next for John, I want to talk about where I was disappointed in the ending of this main event. Stipe's a legend. Stipe, it was predictable as anything that Stipe was going to retire at the end of this. We all said it. Everybody in the world said it. He was severely outgunned in this match. Everybody agreed that Jon Jones was more than likely going to win this fight. And Stipe just walked out of the cage to no fanfare after saying, "I'm done." That hurt me as a Stipe fan.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it, but you're right, because as soon as you said it, I knew exactly where you're going to go with it, because I was just thinking about all the retirement video packages and nice send-offs that the UFC has been doing lately, right? That a lot of people have really been a fan of and just said, man, kudos, amazing, more of this, like let's show some respect to these legends. I mean, the Robbie Lawler one was fantastic. Carla Esparza, just these beautiful moments that they're putting together. And as you said, this was no surprise. I mean, Dana White even said, and now I'm thinking, maybe it was simply because it had been a long night. There weren't a lot of finishes. It was late on the East Coast. Maybe they had something prepared and they just decided to not utilize it at the last moment. But you are right. You are right, especially because I think a lot of people, including myself, have been very appreciative of the increased send-offs that they've been giving to these athletes in recent years. And this was certainly an opportunity to do that. A predictable one, as you said, right? Like not a surprise. Like, oh my gosh, you know what? He's hanging it up today. We would have had something ready if we'd have known. So that is interesting. Good observation.
And not that the UFC needs to or anything, or that Stipe asked for it. It's just, I've stated so many times on this podcast what a big Stipe fan I am.
Yeah.
I wanted something, man. Like, it just left me of like, man, I go to bed just feeling bad. Like, I'm just not happy now. I'm just not happy.
I get it. Like, it's not even necessarily to be for Stipe, but it's just cool to have that moment. And it's always cool to, maybe
Stipe didn't need it. Eric did.
Eric did.
Eric.
As soon as we get done, I'll ring him up. I'll let him know. I'll put in a word to Dana and say, "Listen, you let my guy Eric down. I'm gonna let it slide this time, but I just want to make sure you dropped the ball on this one. And if any of his favorite fighters are potentially retiring in the near future, I'm gonna let you know, so you make sure that this package gets run every time. So I got you, bro. I got you.
Yeah, man.
I got you.
Yang to my yang, brother." So now let's go to the post fight, because I think that's where the conversation really starts. Okay.
100%.
One, Jon Jones is like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? He really is. So in my opinion, John is to use my wrestling terminology, he's a natural heel. That's natural for him. He likes to agitate. He likes to stir. He likes to be the guy to even play mental war games. I mean, that's what he likes to be. And it shows in his personal life too. He's just a natural heel. Okay. He was a natural heel, like literally fight week the whole time. He was the heel, but albeit the greatest of all time. So on one hand, you have to give him the acknowledgement. You have to be a fan of what he does in the cage, but he's being a heel on Stipe, maybe amping things up and trying to start some controversy, which may or may not. Like, I can't tell you how Jon Jones is going to take something personal.
Right.
And then the post fight, and then he turns into like the ultimate babyface again. And being like, and then he starts professing his faith and, his appreciation for his country, and which is, he's basically now baby facing the crowd. I just think, before we get into that, I just think that, is this all calculated by him? Like, is he playing with like our emotions as fans? Like, he's playing with the emotions and stuff of his opponents?
It's interesting. I think and I may be wrong about this because I've never really. First of all, you don't know if you're going to get a straight answer from John, and who knows how much he's even thought it through. But I kind of think of it almost as like, because you mentioned kind of the controversy, right, where he was talking about Stipe was talking about his kids, and everybody was like, "What? Like, I don't think he did," and it was just some like random video. But I kind of wonder if it's more of just like, I'm going to find a reason to hate this dude. Like, I need to hate this guy. Like, nobody hates Stipe. You know what I mean? Like, the nicest dude. He's a firefighter, and you're like, yeah, that son of a gun was talking about my kids, and he made this personal. I just wanted to have a fist fight to determine greatness in this mixed martial arts contest, but so I don't know that it's calculated in terms of like, let me play on manipulate the crowd or manipulate the emotion to that point, the way a good professional wrestler obviously understands exactly. It has to be calculated. Everything they do is to rile that crowd up one way or the other. I don't know if it is or not, or if it's more of just like him internalizing, like, I'm going in there and my reputation is on the line. My greatness is on the line. My legacy is on the line. And not only do I know that I have to prepare insanely the way we know he does, right? I mean, his preparation is legendarily insane in terms of its detail and its depth. But I think he kind of needs to find something to be like, I got to hate this dude. Not only am I going to beat him and know the techniques, I got to have something inside of me that's burning that makes me go, you're not taking nothing from me. And so that to me is what I think. If it is all just pure manipulation, he's damn good at it. He probably should go ahead and cross over WWE when he's done, right? I mean, they're all under the TKO banner because you're right. You know, this is, you're borrowing the professional wrestling parlance, but it works here, right? Because all week long, all I could hear was people hating him because he's talking bad about Tom Aspinall. He's talking bad about Stipe. And then, as you said, he gets on the mic and he's like, I'm a Christian and I love US.
He's just completely dismissive of Tom Aspinall, which is crazy, and we'll get to. But just, I mean, utterly dismissive of the guy, right?
Yeah,
it's funny. So anyways, Rogan, what's in your future? Well, I've decided I'm not going to retire. Great pop from the crowd.
Right.
And I got to have a conversation. I have options, but, if negotiations go well, I'm pretty sure you guys are going to get what you want. And so basically the Tom Aspinall fight. Only to, in the post-fight press conference, say, it ain't Tom. He reverts back right away.
That was pretty smart. I'm going to give you exactly what you want. I mean, I think, look, he's leaving it out there. It's really, really interesting, man, because you and I talked about this going into the fight. And I think the case for Tom Aspinall became even stronger during the week of the fight, right? It seemed like there was this public momentum around me. Tom is about as likable of a dude as you're ever going to meet, right? And he's good on social media, and he's good at the way he does stuff. It's just very casual, like, yeah, I don't know. What's the guy's problem? I don't know, And, the case that I still, now obviously we can talk the comments of Dana White too, because Dana White's saying, look, I'm not making that fight. But Dana did kind of backtrack as well and say, well, if him and Alex really keep bothering me about it, maybe we'll. But here's why I wanted to go with that. Because as we stand here today, post-fight, post-UFC 309, I'm going to say the exact same thing that you and I have been saying for months. I still believe the biggest fight that the UFC can make right now is Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira. I still believe...
Who's a bigger star? Just flat out. Poatan or Aspinall?
It's Poatan. And this, again... I love me some Tom Aspinall. Like, I think this dude is the future. Whether or not he faces Jon Jones, we just talked about some of those records might fall. This might be that dude that helps break some of those records. Obviously, you wouldn't have the light heavyweight track record, but this dude, Jon Jones, or Tom Aspinall, I say, could beat a lot of Jon Jones records, Stipe's records, everybody's records. So I love the guy. If they do sign up to fight, I love it. I am in for that fight. But I'm just talking... We just talked about Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul being a fight that we all knew what was going to happen in it, but it was the biggest, fight of the weekend, right? It was the most watched fight. And so if we're just talking dollars and cents, pay-per-view buys, casual interest, Jon Jones versus Poatan is still the biggest fight to make. But, I mean, look, he is the interim champ. I mean, if they can make it at heavyweight, it's not like I'm going to sit here and go like, oh, we are missing out on a major opportunity here.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, what are we doing here? We're gonna do this Aspinall fight when we got Poatan just sitting over there? Like, no. That would be an amazing fight. So there's some options, but now you talk about being calculated. I don't know how calculated Jon Jones is when it comes to the emotional feelings of the crowd, but I can tell you how calculated he is when it comes to lining those pockets and getting them paydays up. And I think you kind of touched on it going in, you know what I mean? That like, hey, I believe he may retire, which it's not that he did, but he didn't say he is definitely fighting again. He was just like, look, and Jon Jones is right about the position that he stands in. He says, look, if they want this fight, they're going to have to pay me an insane amount of money. FU money was the actual quote that he used. I'm going to need that kind of money to do this. And my gosh, Eric, what a position to be in that Jon Jones is in right now, right? Because he said it. He's like, I don't need Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall needs me. And the truth is, Jon Jones could say the same thing for the UFC. I don't need the UFC. Now, the UFC will be fine without him, but they would certainly like to do some business with him too. What a position to be in, to be like, as I stand here right now, I don't need to work another day in my life. I'm financially set. My kids are set. Their kids are set. And on top of that, I have a legacy as of the greatest of all time, whether I ever step into there again or not. But if you want me to come back, don't get one Brinks truck. Get two of them. Make sure they show up simultaneously at my house, and we'll talk. What an incredible position.
I need to take up for Jon Jones. I need to take up for him, okay? Because much has been made about the passing of the torch that you can historically look at. Right? And Dana even said, like, hey, Shogun gave him a young up-and-comer, gave him the opportunity, and this, that, and the other. And on the surface, he's 100% right.
Right.
But when you take a few layers off, here's going to be my retort to that. Jon Jones has been doing that for a decade.
I agree. 100%. He's given those opportunities.
He's been giving the young upstart an opportunity for a decade. And you know what? And if the answer is you have to do it till you lose, then let's have a different conversation. But the conversation I'm having is saying you need to give the young upstart, the indestructible, this, that, and the other, the shot. Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes, Alexander Gustafsson. I mean, OSP at the time. He's been doing it. And so Jon doesn't care about the title. He cares about the legacy. He has earned it. I actually fall into the camp of Jon Jones in this respect. Because you can't, in my opinion, you cannot, the fans, Dana's going to hang over whatever his head, it's business from Dana's perspective. But the fans can't hold that over his head because they're saying you need to give the next guy the opportunity like you were given. That dude has been doing it. And I don't want to hear that argument again. I think it's fool's gold argument.
It's 100% right, man. I'm so glad you said that because there's in a lot of ways I have felt very much in the minority of defending Jon Jones and what he's earned and the right he has. Yeah, I just wanted to get the number right. 12 successful UFC title defenses. And oh, by the way, it'd be a lot more if he hadn't been stripped a couple of times and given it up a couple more times. So that's 12 times that there was the next challenger in line that he said, okay, if you're not, I mean, go back through his run at light heavyweight and tell me what the fight was that we didn't get at light heavyweight. Tell me, this whole, he's running, he's ducking, he's this. What? I don't understand that. Like, he fought every fight. Now, if that's the fight you want to see right now, I get it. And I totally understand. But you were spot on with that assessment. He is given this opportunity over and over. And again, the professional wrestling, you got to give them the rub, right? As you're leaving the business, you got to give the next person the rub to help them as they continue the business to go. And I get that, but I do believe there are certain special circumstances where that doesn't have to be the case. I mean, I think back to Khabib Nurmagomedov. You know what I mean? I know people hold these two people in completely different lights and regards, but when Khabib hung it up, I struggle to remember anybody saying, this selfish son of a gun, like, what? You can't just walk away with the title like that. Do you know how many people are at lightweight right now that deserve it? You owe them the opportunity. I don't get it. And Jon, and again, I know people don't like what Jon Jones has to say sometimes, but he said it on Fight Week, right? Like, because a lot of people are saying, well, it's different. It's different here because there's an interim champion, and you have to face that interim champion. But to Jon's credit, like, what he said is true. Like, there shouldn't have been an interim champion. Like, they just needed a title fight at Madison Square Garden when I couldn't fight, so they came up with one. And that's It is true. You know what I mean? Like, they created that. It wasn't like it was painfully necessary at the time to make it happen. So I don't know, man. I don't believe Jon Jones owes anybody anything. And I don't believe that if he does decide to walk away and not fight again, or if he does decide to give up this belt and fight Alex Pereira instead, I just don't believe that you have the right to question anything about what he's doing. You can say you don't like it, that you want to see another fight, and that's fine. That's your personal preference. But to pretend as if he's owes anybody anything or he's not delivering on something he's supposed to do as a fighter, that's hogwash right there is what that is.
It's a bonkers argument, because essentially what the fans are saying is you need to give everybody the opportunity until you finally lose. That's right. Really what they're saying, because if it's not, so it's actually, it's a catch-22, even for the UFC, in my perspective. This is the last thing I'm going to say on it. Let's say that you do get the Aspinall fight. Now he's ran through everybody, and now what's this? It completely dismantles the heavyweight division. There's not this next mythical creature if Jon Jones beats him, and then Jon Jones walks away. The heavyweight division reverts back to what it was, 5 years ago.
It's actually good. From a salesmanship and discussion standpoint, it's almost better if, Jones gets away and Aspinall becomes this champion. They're like, that dude's so great, and what if, because you're right. If Jon Jones does go in there and beat Tom Aspinall, then what do you do? Like, so you're saying Aspinall is the cut of the class right now. He's the top of the division, and then he loses. So then what? You know what I mean? So and again, I would love to see Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. Would absolutely love it, man. I think it would be an incredible fight. And Tom Aspinall, I believe, is the future of the division. But I just don't feel like you can act like Jon owes anybody anything.
No. All right, really quick, we got to move on. We got about 10 minutes left here. Let's touch on the co-main event very quickly. The Bronx, he's good. He good.
Hey, that's about all you can say, right, man? This dude just continues to get better and better. I mean, this was a dominant performance. Michael Chandler came alive in round 5, and I think maybe he took his foot off the gas at a time when he shouldn't have, and maybe he had a chance to come back with something a little bit miraculous, but made it exciting, made it fun. And I love what Dana, had to say afterwards as well, that like Michael Chandler, that dude, until he's ready to retire, bro, he can stay right here. We got a place for him. So, this was the one where, Michael Chandler's championship stock may have taken a big hit. But as far as just knowing that whatever that dude does, it's going to be a fun fight. Like, come on, man. If that dude's on the card, you're going to want to watch him fight. And then Charles Oliveira, my goodness, this dude it seems like he gets better. He's so well-rounded and so dangerous. Looks good on the feet. Obviously, the grappling game is on a different level. Dude is dangerous. He's, there's some tough challenges for him up there. Arman Sarukian, Islam Makhachev. I mean, these are dangerous guys that match up with him very well. But, man, Charles Oliveira is as good as it gets at 155 pounds.
Here's what, coming out of this fight, this is the only question that I had. How did he fold to Islam as easily as he did? That it just seemed like he was like a quick revert back to the old Charles Oliveira, because Michael Chandler hit him with bombs. We've seen everybody hit him with bombs, and yeah, he may get dropped, but he recovers so quick, and this, that, and the other. And then a guy like Islam, who isn't revered as this amazing striker like Poirier is, or even Michael Chandler or Justin Gaethje, the people that seemingly hit Charles really hard that he overcame. That wasn't the case with Islam Makhachev, and he almost just crumbled to it. So what I'm saying is that if this is correct on Charles Oliveira, I think, because Arman narrowly beat him. Narrowly. And that was a fight of the year type fight.
Yep.
And now I don't see that ever happening, if he's right in the right frame of mind, happening to Charles Oliveira, whether be it against Sarukian or Islam. I just don't know what happened in that one fight in Abu Dhabi that day that made it look so easy. That was what I got coming out of that fight. How did I went straight back to that fight? How did that happen?
That's amazing. It's funny. You're right. It's a great way, an observation to look at it. And you just wonder what was off that night, maybe. You know what I mean? Like I said, was it something in the middle? Was it something in that moment? Was it something in the leading up to it? It's a fight that I think we'd like to see again, right? You know what I mean? If things play out the way they can. Yeah, he certainly earned the right to do it, man. So I'd love to see it. I mean, he came out and took this fight did it in dominating fashion. But there's another guy that, man, it's just crazy. I mean, 14 years in the UFC. I mean, that's amazing. And 14 years ago,
this game now.
Exactly. He's established us. And remember, it wasn't all that long ago. I mean, I say it wasn't all that long ago. It was probably 7 years ago or so. But, where there was a narrative that, like, this dude just quits sometimes, unfortunately. I mean, he folds in spots like that. And that's what you were talking about, reverting back. But this run that he's been on is absolutely incredible. This was a beautiful, beautiful performance and sets him up, I think, for the winner of Makhachev and Arman once they get that thing rescheduled. Looks like maybe, January, February next year. So maybe summertime or so, Charles Oliveira is fighting for a title again.
And I'm just saying he's so visually pleasing to watch fight.
He's so good, dude. His striking has come leaps and bounds. His grappling has always been amazing. But, man, he's using his body type now, that long frame that he has. It's
he
great
was
striking.
Pressuring. He was the one pressuring Michael Chandler, who's so damn explosive. He was getting within range. He was almost saying, hey, I'll stay at your range, Chandler, who's utterly dominant when Michael Chandler is in his striking range with his explosivity. And it was beautiful.
It was. So I want to ask you real quick, is Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. I know we got some other stuff to talk about, but Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig. What are your emotions after this? Because it was funny. Sometime during fight week, I realized, because for the moment this fight got announced, I was like, bro, we're going to see D1 wrestling against Savage Jiu-Jitsu. And we know Bo's probably the better athlete, but Paul is this dude with this heart that won't go away, and he can find something late. And then somewhere during the middle of fight week, I was like, wait a minute. Bo Nickal knows this too. He's never going to grapple with them. And I was just, it was a clear win. It was a smart win. But I think this was one that kind of took a little bit of wind out of my sails on the night because I wanted to see him engage in that type of fight. It's not Bo Nickal's responsibility to fight the type of fight I want to see him fight. You know what I mean? You're better off fighting the way that you think is going to give you the most chance of success. But it did take a little wind out of my sails, and I was like, damn it, I want to see these two dudes engage on the ground.
Here's my take on that. Bo Nickal is going to be there in the end. In my opinion, he's going to be there in the end.
Mm-hmm.
But this fight showed that he's got still a ways to go.
Right.
That's my take, right? And he said so as much himself. He's not ready for Chimaev like he was stating a year or two ago. He ain't ready for Chimaev yet. It just ain't there. Do I think he will be? Yeah, I do think he will be. Do I think he's scared to grapple? No, but I think he's scared at this point to take the risk of doing something. And it just shows that maybe he knows that he's not a top 2-3 contender like he was publicly stating before. That's all. And I think it's smart of him. It's calculated of him. It shows his youth, or it shows his now maturity in the game, and he's not some young lion spitting piss and vinegar all over the place like he was 2 years ago. I see this growth, but I also see it as we got a ways still. We do got a ways.
100% agree. It was comical to see the difference in size between them two in the cage, by the way, as well. That looked like a video game where you pick somebody that's in the wrong weight class and move them up out of there or something. It was wild. Yeah.
Now, really quick, I got to touch on tell everybody quickly, because I do got to get running. We're recording, just peek behind the curtain. We're recording a little early today just because I got things to do. But CFFC Match Day. Tell everybody about your experience.
We had some wildness, man. It's worth checking out the replays if you get a chance. But we had two events. We had one on Friday and one on Sunday. And Friday, we were outside at a baseball stadium at Campbell University. I was actually on the mic for that one. And we had a gorgeous day as we got the match underway between Campbell and Nebraska. And then sometime in the third match, as the sun started to drop and the weather dropped, some condensation developed on the mat. And we dried it up a little bit, but, man, it was just getting worse. And obviously, Nebraska was bringing some elite D1 wrestlers to town. And so, I think they, wanted to be very, very cautious about that. I mean, you always want to. The health and safety of the athletes in any combat sports is paramount, but especially when you're talking about guys that have real shots at national titles. They don't want to take any kind of variable and have it cause them an injury. So thought, man, maybe after 3 matches of the scheduled 10, like, we're going to be done. And Nebraska team was like, man, we just can't compete on this. Credit to Campbell University for saying, you know what? There's a gym right over there. What if we just roll up the mats, we take him in that gym, we set him back up, and we go again? And it's a credit to Nebraska for saying, we'll do it. For credit to Campbell for coming up with the idea, credit to Nebraska for saying, that's fair to us, let's go. Because Nebraska actually had another duel with the University of North Carolina, which is about 40 minutes away down the street later that night. So I thought they might leave, and they were like, nope, let's continue this duel. Let's get it done. And then credit to our production team at CFFC, because we're like, how do you move a whole production from outdoors to indoors in 10 minutes? Like literally 10 minutes. And everybody's like, well, we can't move the whole production, but I bet we could run one camera, and I bet we could run a mic, and we're not going to be able to get graphics on all of it, but at least we can show the action, and we can shoot the scoreboard, and we can put Shane Sparks. We can only have one headset. We can't have two, but we can put Shane on there. He can go. And everybody scrambled, and we got it done and showed the rest of the afternoon. So that was great. And then the next day, then we watched UFC 309. And then on Sunday, we were up in Toms River, New Jersey for a couple of matches there. NC State got a couple of wins versus Princeton and Rutgers, which two great duels there. That one was inside. I was not on the mic for that one. I was in production on the graphics for that one, and enjoying that, man. I'm loving that side of it. That one went a little smoother because we took the weather out of the equation, but it was a busy weekend. 3 duels in 2 days, a 6-hour drive in between, and some chaos to start the week. But it was a blessing, man. It was a lot of fun, and I just encourage everybody to check out CFFC Match Day. If you haven't watched D1 wrestling before, man, the whole crew there is doing a phenomenal job of showing the sport, and you'll see like some of the graphics that I was using in there. Just like I put little like scoring explainers. So if you've never watched it before and they start talking about riding time, and you're like, what's riding time? I just pop up a little graphic that's like, hey, riding time is 1 point is awarded at the end of the third period if somebody has over a minute. You know what I mean? Hey, oh, that's a near fall. What is near fall? Pop up a little graphic as they're talking about it. It can be 2, 3, or 4 points, depending. You know what I mean? Just everything. Just so if it's a little bit overwhelming, because I know you're a big fan of D1 wrestling, but if you don't know it, you might not know what you're watching. But so what we want to do is, cater to the hardcores and let them see Division I wrestling presented on this beautiful stage, but also, if it's your first time watching it, to try to help ease you into it and understand it, because we see the athletes that come out of D1 wrestling. You saw the D1 wrestling ties at 309, not just with Nickal, but with Stipe, with Jon Jones was D2, but with Missouri with Chandler. So anyway, we got some great dates coming up. There's more to come. We'll keep talking about it. But yeah, crazy weekend, including moving a production indoors on a 10-minute notice. And credit to everybody involved for pulling it off. How was your weekend?
There was controversy. I mean, I don't think there was controversy, but there was some fallout of it. But it was just an unfortunate circumstance. For those who don't know, I was the referee in the main event of Gamebred Bareknuckle MMA down on the Gulf Coast in Biloxi, Mississippi. Great event. They put on a fabulous show.
Great card.
Phenomenal card. So main event, Frank Tate. Or no, I'm sorry, not saying Frank Tate had a horrendously awesome knockout. Scary,
yep.
But main event. It is Brandon Davis taking on Randy Costa.
Yep.
In the main event. The 2.5 minutes that this fight went was unbelievable. Costa was clearly winning all the exchanges in the first 2 minutes of the fight. Brandon Davis, to his credit, he was in there talking like, yeah, good shot. Let's go. Let's keep going. Like,
he's always wild, man.
Always been a
wild, man.
Brandon Davis. Brandon Davis in an exchange cracks him with an overhand, really sends Costa's reeling, backs him up against the cage, punch, uppercut, drops him to the ground. He's covering up. I, as the ref, say, Costa, you got to move or I'm going to stop the fight. To at that point, he goes from an all-four position to then sitting up so he could track the shots, looking at his opponent. And this is when the unfortunate circumstances, Brandon Davis needed one more shot, and I was going to jump in. One more punch, whether it landed or not, I was going to jump in because I'm given the benefit of the doubt. And he decides to throw an illegal knee to the head of a grounded opponent. And, he still is contesting that it was to the chest. Unfortunately, I disagree.
Yeah.
Video proof has solidified that it was to the head. I was able to consult replay at the thing. He's upset about it. I get it. It cost him money and, it cost him a championship. So the vacant title is still vacant. And, fighters are emotional. I get it, but just out of sanity check it, I've sent videos to, ABC officials, Blake Grice and Kevin McDonald. They both said, one, the call was spot on. Two, the procedure was spot on. The ultimate no contest decision was spot on. I then sanity checked that with, the GOAT, John McCarthy. He said the same exact thing. And it's just unfortunate that a great event was marred with a indecisive decision, or not indecisive, it was a decisive decision, but with no resolution to a main event. And it's just unfortunate. And I'm sorry that, Costa, Brandon Davis, and I'm sorry that I was in that position. I'm sorry the Athletic Commission is in that position. And I'm sorry that Gamebred is in that position. But rules are rules. Rules need to be followed. And if they're not followed, it's out of my hands at that point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Obviously I reached out to you next morning because I got a chance to watch as well. And I got to be honest with you, friends or not, co-hosts or not, like I thought you nailed it. Just, if I'm standing out, if it's any other official, it's unfortunate. You said the right word. It's unfortunate because nobody in any mixed martial arts contest, in any combat sports contest wants anything to end in a no contest, much less the main event of the night, the title fight, right? I mean, nobody wants that. It's kind of that letdown feeling, but it was the right one, I think. And could have been a disqualification, Anita, but I thought you were spot on in the fact that, as you said, you told Costa to move. He moved. He made an adjustment where maybe Brandon thought maybe he's not down or maybe he wasn't really targeting the head. There were just too many variables there where it didn't seem like he was intentionally trying to break the rules. It's in the sequence of a finish. There's all these variables that add into it. And then obviously it was determined that Randy Costa could not continue. And so at that point, you have no choice. I mean, it was an illegal knee to the head of a downed opponent, and it was essentially the fight-ending blow at that point because Randy couldn't continue. So you really have no choice at that moment but to call it a no contest. So for what it's worth, again, and I'm not a licensed or officially trained mixed martial arts referee, but I've spent the last 20 years of my life doing nothing but covering mixed martial arts contests and going to commission hearings and going to training seminars and being around it. And for what it's worth, from my perspective, I thought you nailed it. I know it sucks because, I talked to Brandon Davis ahead of the fight. I know how important this moment was for him. And I'm like you. I'm a Brandon Davis fan, man. He's an exciting fighter. It's just like this was one of those unfortunate, man, where he was so close to getting the finish. And you just make one mistake in there. There's one blow that you can't throw. And even with the new definition of grounded opponents and all that, that's clearly a grounded opponent. So it was a damn shame. But again, for what it's worth, I thought you made the right call as well. I
appreciate it. I'm even more solidified now. Solidified in the moment. I'm even more solidified now. And, it just sucks. It sucks for everybody involved. Yep. Brandon Davis, especially because, he doesn't have a title and he doesn't have a win bonus. And, but at the end of the day, I am not in the game of subjectivity.
Right.
As a referee, I'm in the game of black and white absolutes. It was a knee to the head of a grounded opponent. Replay confirmed it. Protests were made after the fight, maybe not officially, but then, just making sure I took accountability for what I had to take accountability for. I then even sent videos around to all the big dogs, even executive directors of other commissions. And, they've all come in and said it was absolutely the right call. In fact, a couple of athletic executive director said it really should have been a DQ by the way it was framed, but nobody would have questioned had I gone in no contest. And I just think John McCarthy told me, this is the last thing I need to say. John McCarthy said, Eric, if you follow 4 simple guidelines, you're always going to come to the right conclusion when determining how the fight should be officially scored in controversy. What is best for the fighters, what is best for the fans, what is best for the promotion, and what is best for the sport. In that moment, I took those all into equation. What is best for the fighters? No contest.
Yep.
What is best for the fans? No contest. Their hometown boy didn't get a DQ. I think that was what's best for the fans. What was best for the sport is that I followed the rules to a T, that I did not subjectively do anything. And then what is best for the promotion is that they don't have a world champion win it by disqualification.
Answered on all accounts. 100% right. 100% right. I think it was the right call. Not a fun call, but that's the fun, the thankless job that it is to be an official, to be a judge, right? If you judge it right, nobody knows what card you're on or who says it's only when you happen to see things the other way that all of a sudden the judges' names come out and all of a sudden you don't know anything about the sport, even though I've seen guys that, they spend their life studying the sport and loving the sport. And nobody does this to get into it, to be wealthy. You know what I mean? You do it because you have a passion for the sport.
Or to be mocked online for a whole weekend straight. But,
it's tough, man. It's a tough spot. I felt bad for you being in that position. It sucks because that's not the position you want to be in. But I thought you did the right thing, as unfortunate as it was.
I appreciate it. With that being said, a great event at Madison Square Garden. We both worked great events as well. For John Morgan, I'm Eric McMahon. Enjoy the fights.